My name is Michael. I'm a recovering addict with dual diagnosis. In November of 1999, I attended my second treatment in my entire life. I am 53 years old now. I was lucky enough that the psychiatrist who was the medical director of said treatment center was a genius. He ended up, he ended up getting the right meds on the right back. Some of them was Depakote, and another one was lithium, and there were a few others that I don't remember. I do recall being on Depakote and lithium for a very long time. After treatment, I went into a halfway house. After the halfway house, I was able to put it together, altogether, 3 years clean. And on one day, I decided to test the waters again, and I went out on my DOC of crack. I did 3 years, day out, came back into the program the next day, did another 3 years, went out, came back the next day, did another 3 years, came out, went back to the program, and in 2015, I went out again. All through this time, I was medication compliant, doing the right thing, taking the right amounts, not over-abusing, not abusing it. On June 8th of 2015, I had a huge disagreement with my mother at the courthouse. I walked away from her, walked home, went in my bedroom of my halfway house, and took 45 lithium carbonates because I knew how many it would take to end my life. I was rushed to the hospital, and had they not done dialysis at early in the morning on the 9th of June 2015, I wouldn't be here today. After that, I think it was a few months later, I relapsed again. I relapsed on my drug of choice of crack. And then 2 weeks after that, I was invited to a party. And at that party, I smoked methamphetamine. In the same night, I shot it. When I shot it, I found that wonderful drug. I found the answer to all my problems. I was not on my medication. And for the last 5 years, I've been struggling to get back to the program. I would put together 30 days and go out. I would put together 60 days and go out. I would put together 90 days and go out. And I kept going back to the needle. That chemical methamphetamine, when it is injected into your body, clears your mind. Wipes out anything that's going on, and you don't worry about anything for a week or two while you're awake. I moved into an Oxford house last summer, and I did very well there. I was the president of the house. I was medication compliant. My bipolar and anxiety disorder were not prevalent. They weren't the primary disease anymore. My addiction was my primary disease. And I slipped up there and I got kicked out. I went into another halfway house a month later. That was a disaster. And I moved into a decent halfway house, but I couldn't afford it. And I was in relapse mode. I was already thinking about shooting meth before I even moved out of that halfway house. I acquired a room for rent in a house with a guy I knew was a methamphetamine addict, and it started all over again. That was last year. That was in February or March I moved in. I started to go back to my addiction, constantly using on a daily basis. And on the day in April, I don't remember the exact day of 2019, a friend of mine asked me if I wanted a line of meth to snort. And I have to understand, I didn't snort it. I didn't smoke it. May have smoked it a half a dozen times. I put it in my arm. I didn't have a rig, a syringe, so I decided I'd do it. While snorting that line through my right nostril, I paused to catch a breath or something, and I must have exhaled through my nose because I saw pieces of methamphetamine go from the bottom of the pile directly into my eye. What do most people do when something gets in their eye? They immediately go like this. which is what I did. Methamphetamine is water soluble. I did severe damage to my right eye. I burnt my cornea. It was excruciating pain. I didn't go to the hospital for 2 weeks. I didn't know how to, I would explain what happened. When I went to the hospital, I explained to them that I was raking leaves and I got fertilizer in my eye, which is pretty much close to the truth. I was told by the hospital to go to a specialist, which I did. He said I was required to go to a special hospital in Miami, which my mother was not taking me to. The next day I went to a different hospital. They brought in an ophthalmologist, and he said I was possibly going to lose my eye, but he was going to try very hard not to. I saw him for a month every day until my insurance said, even if you change over to another doctor, we won't pay for it. You have to do it now. I went to the second ophthalmologist, and she was very gruff and told me if I did not follow her directions to a T, I would lose my eyeball. Imagine that. Somebody with bipolar disorder, with a severe anxiety disorder, and a chronic addiction problem, hearing that news, it devastated me. I followed every direction that doctor told me. I saved my eye. I had a surgery on my cornea to remove scarring. They were able only to remove 40% of the scarring. I have 60% scarring left in my cornea, as well as it all created a large cataract, which needs to be removed. When I posted the response to the post I saw on Instagram that got me this video, I posted that I'm 60 days clean as of tomorrow, God willing. I had 6 years clean almost, and went out, and I've had 5 years of hell. And with this COVID-19 situation, it's a struggle. Yesterday I had cravings beyond cravings beyond cravings. I think I did the right thing. My psychiatrist had told me once, if I get into a bad anxiety attack or a panic attack, I can chew a Seroquel. I take 200 milligrams. Usually I only chew half. Yesterday I took 300 milligrams. I was unable to get to sleep because my phone kept ringing, but I got to rest and relax for 3 hours. And when I woke up, I went to a virtual meeting, and then I started on my step 3. This is no joke. Being dually diagnosed is a nightmare. One day you can be happy-go-lucky and normal, and the next day you're going to be in depression mode, something fierce, which will trigger relapse mode if you're not careful. Then you can have a day after that, or a week maybe later on, where you go manic, where your brain is spinning so fast you can't keep up with it, and you want to calm it down. And the only way we as addicts know how to calm things down is to use drugs, if we don't have a solid foundation in our program. I battle this every day. I am dually diagnosed. I battle my mental disorder, which the psychiatrists pretty much say is my primary disorder, and addiction comes second. I kind of sort of believe that, because all through my life, even before I got into drugs, my life was unmanageable. I had few friends. I acted out a lot. I had temper tantrums. I ended up not having that many friends when I got to junior high. I had moved from my state to another state before high school. My freshman year, I had no friends. My sophomore year, I met some people, and they introduced me to drugs right before my junior year. As soon as I put those chemicals in my head, when I first smoked marijuana, I felt like I was normal. I felt like I fit in. That blew into cocaine. That blew into acid. You know the story. It just kept tumbling and tumbling and tumbling and tumbling. In December of 1985, I went to my first treatment center because I spent all of my college book fund on drugs and told my parents I had a drug problem, expecting outpatient treatment. I got inpatient treatment. I was 18 years old. The program back then didn't have as many young people as it does now. I put together close to 90 days, and I went to a concert, an outdoor venue, with friends that I met in recovery that were 3 years younger than me. We all went together and somehow got separated. I ran into people that I used to party with in high school. One of the gentlemen's name was Chris, came up to me, said, "Hey man, what's up?" He had 2 giant beers in his hand, and he handed me one, and I relapsed. So did my friends, unbeknownst to me, until a week later I found out, and we all started partying, and the train went on. I used to be that addict that said, "My name's Mike, I'm an addict, I've done everything but meth." And I can't say that anymore. Methamphetamine has ruined my life. As you can see, I have meth mouth. I'm missing almost the whole top row of my mouth and teeth. It's embarrassing. The left side of my face is caving in. I have to get dentures. I contracted Hep C twice. Once in 2016. Went on Harvoni, I was cured. And most recently, it was in November or December, I was diagnosed with Hep C again, with the highest viral loads that any of the doctors that I was seeing had ever seen. I was put on another medication, Vosevi. As I was on the Hep C medication that hopefully cured me, I was still shooting meth. I have an appointment with my gastro on the 6th virtual to make the arrangements for the blood work to find out if I am cured. I seriously doubt it. I suffer from a fatty liver from not having my Hep C treated for a while, for a year. I had it for a year. I didn't know it. Doctors kept saying, "You have Hep C," and I would tell them, "No, I have the antibody for Hep C because it's in my system from when I had it once." That was not true. I had Hep C. When they did my viral loads and my genotype, I was a rare genotype, number 3. Went to the appointment with the results, found out it was genotype 3, and also found out that I had the highest viral load that the doctors in his practice have ever seen. Imagine somebody dually diagnosed finding out that information. Being sick in addiction. I passed the first drug test. I was supposed to get blood work done every month, starting in December, January, February. I was on the 90-day protocol. I had my blood work done when they found out, and I never went back because I kept shooting meth. I knew they'd find it, and they would probably pull me off the medication. Like I said, being dually diagnosed, in other words, being an addict with having mental problems and emotional problems, is worse than you can imagine. Our brains tell us one thing when we're on our meds, that everything is copacetic, that everything will be okay with therapy and the program and doing the right thing. The minute you put an illegal substance or any kind of substance into your body while you're on medication for bipolar disorder and anxiety disorder, they don't work. The drugs take over. Or people with obsessive compulsive disorder, I could say, where once we put a substance in our body that makes us feel good, our brain chemistry changes, and we need that chemical. We forget about the medication. We go off our medication. we end up getting into the thick of addiction, not knowing a way out. I've pretty much earned a golden ticket to every psych ward in the southeastern Palm Beach County area. I am from Delray Beach, which is the recovery capital of the world, it used to be touted. I live in Boynton Beach right now, which is a town right next to Delray. Like I said, I've got a golden ticket to Fair Oaks Pavilion. I got a golden ticket to JFK Hospital Psych Ward. Unfortunately, I have a golden ticket to South County Mental Health, which is the worst psychiatric institute in the country. No joke. I get into that, but I don't want to bash anybody. They helped when they could help. Through those years of 2015 to 2020, I attended 2 treatment facilities. I went to one twice because I walked out of it after 3 weeks. And then I went back and did their whole 2-month program, got out and relapsed that day. I went to one in Naples in 2018 for 30 days, came back. It wasn't a week I was using. This time around, a lot happened. I was in a halfway house, a really good one, a really strict, structured halfway house that I moved into the end of September by the hair of my chinny chin chin. The gentleman let me move in with no money and pay him when I got my check because I'm on disability. We were drug tested Sundays and Thursdays, so there was no way I could cheat. There was no way I could use. Methamphetamine takes 3 days to get out of your system. There's no 3-day window, Sundays and Thursdays. I started to get that urge that I wanted to use again. It was overpowering. I didn't have a solid program. I was going to meetings, but my brain wasn't there. I wanted to use. I found a room for rent in Delray. It was $15 cheaper than what I was paying in the halfway house. I moved in there December 3rd, 2019. Hoping to relapse that day. It took till December 6th for me to get what I wanted, the meth. From December 6th to December 27th, 2019, my disease took over with a fury. I was shooting meth daily, 2, 3, 4 times a day. I went into psychosis many nights. I saw people in my room that were not there. The first time I saw an old lady there, she wasn't there. Second time I saw a guy that had come over to party and thought he broke in and was in my room smoking meth. I talked to him. I've seen things that weren't there. People. I saw sirens. I heard sirens. I heard radio, walkie-talkie radios that weren't there. I went outside. They weren't there. I went to the depth of addiction from December 3rd to December 26th. When I realized one night that I was doing bad in some of the actions that I did with other people that I had come over, something in my brain told me, you need treatment. I reached out to an old friend who has decades, 3 decades of clean time in Narcotics Anonymous, who knows me better than anybody else in this town. And he said, Michael, you don't need treatment. You know what you need to do. The thing is, I forgot. I'm on a Medicare Advantage plan, so I had to come off of that to go to treatment. I tried to go to treatment on it, couldn't find anywhere. I went to treatment on February 3rd, 2020. From the 27th of December, or 28th really, to February 4th, I switched my addiction to crack again. Figuring, well, it's not that bad as meth. I knew I was going to treatment, but I needed something to keep me sane. I felt like I couldn't go back to the program. I did go to meetings occasionally, because no one else supported me anymore. Only a few people. I can count them on one hand, 3 people. I would share in a meeting and one of them got up and gave me a hug. And his back was bad. He said it when he shared, that he has a problem with his back. And when I shared what I had to share and what happened to me at the room for rent, he got up, bent over, and hugged me. He's known me for years. Only a few people that know me for years still support my recovery. My own mother doesn't believe I had almost 6 years. She barely talks to me. She's very proud of me that I get to do this video. I've put my family through hell. I was in full boat relapse, strong, in 2019. I was high when my father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and I was in the hospital with him. Mom, me, Dad in the room. I kept using strong as my father was dying at home. I was in a halfway house, used in that. Went through psychosis in that. On January 16th, 2019, my father died. Everything stopped. I went over to my mother's house because she needed my comfort. She, turns out, in January of 2019, my brother, who lives in Illinois, they were getting a major snowstorm. And where the family cemetery is, in Massachusetts, they were getting a major snowstorm. So I stayed at my mother's for 10 days before we flew to Massachusetts. I didn't get high. I stayed with my mother. I went to meetings. But I wasn't there. My mind wanted to use. I ended up going to my father's funeral. I stayed sober and clean through the whole thing. I never escaped from my aunt's condo to go get drugs. I did go on certain apps to talk to people, but I didn't go meet them. My father was buried January 23rd, 2019. Or 24th, I think. Or 25th, I'm not exactly sure. I think it was the 25th. I handled that like a trooper. Like an adult. Didn't think I could, but I did. 3 days after I returned to Florida for my father's funeral, I was shooting meth. I was adding a chemical to my damaged brain from my bipolar disorder, axis 1 and 2, and a severe anxiety disorder. My brain thought it was good. Because when you put that stuff in your system directly into your vein, it hits you automatically, immediately, within milliseconds. And it tells you, like I said, you're good. You forget all your problems. And then when you come down, you have 1 or 2 choices. You deal with your problems, or you use again. And that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. The treatment that I went to on February 3rd, 2020 was bare bones. We had 2 groups. First group was at 10 a.m. It was a process group with a therapist. The second group was recreation therapy at 11. Or 12, I'm sorry. Only 2 groups. We had the option of meeting with a therapist. I took that option one day. Because I've been grieving over a friend's overdose death and my part in it. I wasn't there when he overdosed, but I did wish him to die. And 5 months later, after I wished him to die, he died. That's what I wanted to deal with the therapist. As I was talking to the therapist, I opened up that even in treatment, I was thinking about using. Her answer was, "Do you know, Michael, you're in relapse mode in treatment?" That stuck in my head. For 2 days, I pondered on that. I remember being in my room, in my bed, lying in bed, looking at the ceiling and saying, God help me. That's my normal prayer. All through my recovery, even when I had time. Instead of asking God to keep me clean and thanking Him at night, my prayer in the morning was, God help me. And my prayer at bedtime was, God help me. Looked up to the ceiling and I said, just God help me. And I woke up the next morning and I felt different. I started taking active part in my treatment. I was going to stay in this city near Orlando where I went to treatment and go into what they call a transition house, where my rent would have been between $100 to $175 a month, not a week. I thought that's a good time to save some money. And then I found out more about the transition house. They did have an excellent program that you could take part in that was outpatient. Excellent. It was touted to be excellent. It was written down everything that I always wanted in treatment. But I would have to dorm with 18 other guys. And I found out most of them were from the streets or from prison. The treatment facility that I went to twice in 2016, once that I ran away from, once that I did the whole program, was a state-funded program. A 5'10", 125-pound, gay Jewish addict going into that place was scary. And I started to think, I gained some weight in treatment and I got up to 145. 145 pound, toothless, gay, trying to recover addict, around convicts and homeless people again, wouldn't be good for me, so I came home. I came home on March 4th with my exact 30 days. Went to a meeting on the 5th. I shared that I was back. Went to a meeting on the 6th. Shared on the 7th. And then bam, we get hit with COVID-19. I even got a job between that. 5 days out of rehab, I got a job I hadn't worked in 15 years. I was doing well. And then it turned out to be a scam company. So I quit. I had time on my hands. I sit at home in a halfway house with 2 residents that aren't in here for drug or alcohol. They're here because they have nowhere else to go. Their brains are fried. They drive me crazy. The people drive me crazy. The owner of the halfway drives me crazy. The manager drives me crazy. And on a nightly basis, I would think about using. I still don't know when I got my first paycheck of $295 on the 19th of March. Because money was my trigger. How I did it. I didn't use. Through this whole COVID-19 thing. And me being susceptible because I have a lung disease of emphysema that's controlled. It hasn't changed since they diagnosed me. It's still the same it was 24 years ago. I can't leave the house. Even before they put a state lockdown, stay-at-home order the other day, I didn't leave the house. I left the house to pick up my paycheck, cash my paycheck, load my debit card, come home, go shopping online. I didn't go anywhere. I haven't left the house since the 26th of March. When I went and picked up my paycheck, got it cashed. It was like a ghost town. And now we're on a stay-at-home order. I'm the type of bipolar axis 1 and 2 person with a severe anxiety disorder that needs to be around people. I thrive on it. Even on those days that I don't want to deal with anybody, I go out. I mingle with people, mainly from the program. I do something to be around people. Physical contact. I'm not talking about sex. I'm just talking about being around people. Other people. Different people. And since this COVID-19 thing, I'm around the same people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't see other people. I have a gift today. It's payday. Social Security disability. I have to get my rent. And that's all my halfway house owner cares about is rent. He does not care about the people in his house. He only cares about his rent. So my payee is coming over and bringing me my rent. We're going to CVS so I can load money on my debit card to pay my cell phone bill. Stopping at Publix to get a carton of cigarettes. And then coming home. And starting Groundhog Day all over again. Because it's the same thing every day. I fall in deep depression. I try to fight it. I try not to take too many naps a day. I started to take 2 naps a day, and I realized my depression was going deeper. So I pushed myself to stay awake. My morning ritual, my sponsor, who's in South Carolina, long distance, I've known him for quite a few years from Facebook, sent me the questions for each step to do my step work. I have been doing that. I get up in the morning. My sponsor sends me at 10 p.m. the night before excerpts from the Gray Book